Well, hello there, everyone. Having a decent little day? Having a decent little time? Oh, it's been a long weekend. It's a fucking long weekend for me. I hope all of you had a lovely one, though. I ended up not streaming very much. So started working out again. My body's all fucked up from that, so all of that, plus just working too much these days, I think is tearing me a little bit apart. But hello, welcome. Glad to have you all here. Midday stream. We might get into some theory at some point. I might want to take a break from this. But I've been working on this on and off over the weekend. I know other people from you, the chat, all of you people, and the Discord. We're diving in and out and sort of putting in new things, adding little bits. For those of you who are unaware of what we're doing, I'm going to run through the whole thing. We'll talk through it. But we might take a break, do some light theory, and some other stuff. It could be fun. Could be fun. Beyond that, let's see. Gearing up for a new essay. I've got two coming, one that's very long and one that I'm finally getting out that's much shorter. The shorter one is on how the nature of, how to put it. When we talk of colonialism, very often, the conversation tends to be thought of in terms of this brutal, awful takeover where we forcibly make our way into a space, take it over, blah, blah, blah. We colonize countries, you colonize people, you colonize cultures. And this absolutely happens, but it misses, I think, a lot of the sort of soft power ways that capital operates, because capital doesn't need that. It takes that, happily uses that. Most of that, however, capital is happy to get rid of and utilize a very different way of doing it, and the sort of rewriting of things. It overcodes. Overcoding is a thing. Capital is very happy to sort of allow various things to happen as long as they sort of abide by its own rules. And of course, the best film to use to analyze that is the children's film Trolls World Tour. It's a thing I've talked about actually for like 2.5, 3 years now. I've explained it before, but it's about time I actually put it to essays. So turns out it's taking more of a pain in the ass than I thought. For a children's film, it's actually kind of tough to edit and pull together little things, but we'll see. And then the other is on the nature of satire and how media consumption operates, which is actually kind of a bigger deal than I thought. But with that, let's jump in, because I've got as we start talking about today and what I've been up to and what we're doing here. So, and as has happened over the weekend, and people in the Discord have been posting about it, discord.gg/DGQC. We began with this story, this Ohio pastor, this lovely man. Look at how lovely he is, how happy he is. He's got a place called Dad's Place, right? He's dad, presumably. And it's a place that takes in the homeless ostensibly and cares for them. And the big bad government has come in and stopped him from doing that. And over the weekend, I think it was Friday, or was it today? It may have been today. He was finally found guilty of basically flagrantly violating fire codes, amongst other codes, many codes. And I don't know what he thought would happen, but the push behind him has been very strong. And you're seeing it on places like, actually, we'll go through a couple of these because I find it genuinely horrifying how absolutely this is the thing I thought it was going to be. I fucking knew this would become that. The process of propagandizing is speaking to the universal. It's really, really important to understand that the universal, the way people talk about these things, is incredibly important. So, let's see. Where's the first one that came through? Someone posted it was on Reddit. Murdered by words. Normies, not alt-right people or hard-right or even Twitterites at this point, talking about how awful it is, that you can't even care for the homeless anymore. And it strikes everyone, because even people in our Discord, because that's how it hits. And it's not, you're not being fooled. This is not that. This is why this is an important piece for us to go over and talk about. It's not that people are being fooled by it. No, it's not that people are being manipulated by it. You should care about the homeless. Jesus Christ, you should care about those who are the least fortunate. Jesus Christ, you should do these things. Using these things, I would say illegitimately, is a completely different beast. So when we talk about that, here's going to be it's More Perfect Union. I love these guys, but More Perfect Union is fascinating for doing this, and they do this often. More Perfect Union. Let's find out. Come on. Really? That doesn't find it? There you are. So they post about this. God, they post about so much. So here's More Perfect Union. Made out of the Bernie movement, progressive group. And they do phenomenal work, and they do a lot of really fantastic things, actually. I like a lot of their videos, their documentaries. And here they are. Chris Avell, the pastor of Dad's Place in Brown, Ohio, has been found guilty of violating fire codes by running a shelter for those suffering from homelessness. Avell kept his church open 24/7. That they don't look in any of this. They post that USA Today article. Remember when a bunch of you fuckers were like, it's just USA Today. That's the mainstream. USA Today, I hate to tell you, is trusted by people. Even More Perfect Union, who, I mean, these are critical people. This is not, and again, this isn't even shit. This is not meant to shit on anyone. This isn't meant to be shit on anyone. I got caught by this. Everyone gets caught by this because this is what they do. This is the thing. They grab stories and then they know how to lie to tell them. I'll say, I don't believe that Dad's Place takes care of the homeless and gives them a place to sleep. We've seen inside. They have a bedroom in the back. He's there 24 hours a day, as he says. They don't have any other beds. We've seen no images or proof that this is the case. And in fact, there is a 24-hour shelter next door, literally next door, that is actually a storefront, that's run by a couple. We saw it, we went through this on stream, that is taking in families and taking in people, and none of their publicity material even shows a person. They simply don't play the same game. Dad's Place, though. Dad's Place from the beginning, and Chris Avell, has been a political actor. We found a talk he gave that I downloaded, just in case he decides to delete it, where he compares COVID-19 to sin and talks about how COVID-19 is barely spreading, but how sin is spreading everywhere and we need prayer. Why was he in trouble for staying open for 24 hours a day? Well, originally it was during COVID. Well, then he started doing it and they said, well, okay, we will allow this. The city allowed him to make the change of permitting from one to the other. But when you do that, you have to install other things. For example, you can't have barricaded doors if people are living there. You can't have no fire system. They have nothing for fires. Like literally, it's a death trap. It's a death trap concrete building. That's what it is. They don't have a kitchen. They have a table that we saw them have a food rally at to raise money for Dad's Place, but they don't have a kitchen. They don't have food. This is not a shelter. This is a church pretending to be that by having a handful of very desperate people that they put on video and parade in front of other people. Dad's Place is bullshit. Chris Avell, probably quite a genuinely nice, lovely man, but he's bullshit. He is part of this. And he's an emotional, caring person, ostensibly, but it's bullshit. Because underneath it, what's happening is this, and 3 other pastors who are doing the same thing are being pushed by the Federalist Society, by a handful of think tanks around it, specifically to try to dismantle the very nature of commercial fire codes, building codes, those things that we have that keep everyone safe. Because that's one of the things that they've been targeting for years. And again, trying to get everything in place to do that. There is no doubt that they will appeal this decision and appeal it. And it will be found in everyone's favor all the way to the Supreme Court. And because of who's in the Supreme Court and who's in the presidency, that is where it'll be overturned. And we will see new case law that will genuinely start ruining the world. More than it is, I suppose. So, this is their method. This is their setup. They've outlined this. We went through how James Dobson talked about how they needed to do this. We showed historically how they began building these think tanks, how they began building these groups to do these things. The question is, can we do our own? Because it's not a very difficult process. It isn't. We started talking about exactly what it is and how it's set up. The first thing that they do is they understand the dominant framing of a thing. They go through and they do effectively Latour's actor network theory, which is insane that they're using this and leftists aren't, just as a note. Pay attention to how many times that fucking happens there. Frustrating. But they go through the dominant framing of everything, how these things are organized, how they're set up. They then figure out the stakeholders of the entire thing, basically going through a power analysis. They map financial beneficiaries, they figure out regulatory relationships, they figure out towards the goal that they have, which is dismantling regulation. Power mapping is what activists call this. I know. Most people don't, so I'm trying to be kind. So the next step after this is they then go through and decide what the shared experience really is here. What are the universal themes we can touch on? For example, caring for the unhoused, hopeless, destitute, the poorest among us, those who are, and the term pathetic is an important one because it is about them pulling that from people. Pathetic is about pulling empathy. That's where the term comes from. So they take the most pathetic and put them in front of cameras. And Chris is crying so happy. And they're just glad to have somewhere that they can sit for a while. Most of them don't sleep there. We saw a couple who even openly said they don't sleep there. Still wondering how anyone sleeps there. We haven't seen it. But the shared experience is what we talk about when we see what More Perfect Union started talking about. To them, this is horrifying because someone needs to care for these people and we need to allow it. We need to allow it. So what is that? Well, that's the universal messaging that they're hitting on. And then finally, they do their reframing and they push it out. They push it out in a lot of ways. They do a handful of videos and they do a lot of work. This was nothing minor for them. We went through the YouTube channel for these fuckers. This is the USA Today one. 1 second. Where's the First Liberty Institute? The First Liberty Institute has no shortage of videos that they've put on a channel that is barely larger than mine. It's less than half the size of Sunday's. Like, this is not a significant channel, but that's not what it's about. What they do is they put out just a fuck ton of videos around these things. Why support First Liberty? Dad's Place, the story. Each one of these you'll see there is a 2-minute video. You'll see as you go through the Dad's Place thing, they have a ton of short little bits, visiting there, what it was like to visit there. They do this for a ton of content, a ton of things. So then when they finally get to the thing that they need to be doing, which is the story of Dad's Place, for example, they have their playlist ready to go and everything that's happening around that, all of the media appearances, all the things that can be sent out to bolster their argument, to bolster their statement. Okay? This process is, to me, not wildly difficult to co-opt, to be very frank. So, for us, this is the setup. The Miro board is public. It's inside of the Discord if you want to join in, and feel free to do so. We started yesterday by going over the dominant framing. Dominant framing is more or less these elements, what they're turning into, what they're trying to build metaphoric elements out of. So They're working towards, for example, well, we have a lot of people who've been adding stuff. The pastor is having to pay his own money to build something. And with him paying, his flock suffers. Good Christians suffer. This is in the language they use. We have an extraordinary number of quotes up here. We've found a bunch of articles. We found their press releases. And from that, we pull their framing, and the framing that's working, even with our friends at Perfect Union. God, they're great. It happens to everyone. This sucks. This is why this sucks. So we've done, I think, a really good job about the dominant framing. So the setup, more or less, as we're playing through it, is we have our very stark, basic binary oppositions. We have the church and the state, and they've placed that in front of us, these dichotomies, and they've forced us to pick. That's what they're doing in the language. They're always doing this. Choose one. You get your church or you get your state, because one is destroying the other, and the other's just trying to care for people. It's compassion, which is warm, versus regulation, which is cynical, bureaucratic. It's individual faith versus institutional power. It's the well-washed masses versus the marginalized people. These are the tones that they're playing with. And we've gone through, I think, a lot of this. These people are awful. It's so gross. But they're very good at it. God damn, they're good at it. So the next step really is for us to start planning out where the stakeholders in this actually are. This is going to be a fun thing. We're going to be spending time on this today. Stakeholders are a little bit different than the faith, the mission. These are the people involved with the literal event. We can talk about people who find importance, but stakeholders is about the institutions involved very directly. So I'm going to grab these guys and we'll move them. Oh, come on. We're going to move these guys out of here real quick and shrink them on down. Nope, fuck off. Really? This is how this is going to go today. This is going to be a long day, isn't it? Yes, it is, Brooks. We're going to lock you there. Much better. Stupid thing. So let's start finding our stakeholders. The easy sets between them. I think the easy sort of places to start is going to be the ones that are the clearest, which is going to be the Federalist Society, who's ultimately tied into our friends at, this was First Liberty. And ultimately First Liberty is more or less a subsidiary of Federalist. This was really fascinating as we sort of started diving into it, but ultimately it is a Christian legal org that was founded years ago in Texas by Kelly Shackelford, who's been part of Trump's shit in and out, and is very much tied to everything that's happening inside of the Federalist Society. So these people are absolutely tied together to that. So how are these people connected? How they're set up? Well, that's kind of part of the setup. Let's talk about Kelly Shackelford, because she's the person who's actually running the org and has been setting up sort of all of this stuff. Sorry. It's been a long day. Great lawyer, all that stuff. It's a he. So he's the Board of Trustees of the United States Supreme Court Historical Society, National Law Journal, all that stuff. Professor of all this bullshit, whatever. He personally has argued most of these cases in front of the Supreme Court that First Liberty has taken. So, for example, I don't know why I kept saying she. I probably did that yesterday. It's terrible of me. But First Liberty did the case of the coach here in Washington State who demanded to be able to pray with his students in the middle of a field on loudspeaker right before a game in front of everyone. And the states was like, no, you can't do that. That's not how that works. And everyone sided with them up until the Supreme Court, who overturned it and made him. So he argues those cases. He brings those cases to the Supreme Court that no one wants, that no one agrees with, except for the ideologues at the end of that line in the Supreme Court who want to overturn these things. The ability to discriminate against homosexuals, for example, when making a wedding cake. These are these law firms. These are these people. So Kelly Shackelford and everything he's doing, they're set up inside of this larger base, inside of the whole thing. We went through this a little bit yesterday. So let's talk about specifically, because it's wild to me, the shit with Dad's Place. And it's going to be a research stream from here. So it's going to be boring, by the way, is pretty much what that means. It's going to be very boring, but please jump in. Please add to it if you want to. There's nothing to add. One Dova. We're kind of just doing a general research stream on all this shit. So let's talk about Pastor Chris Avell, criminally charged with compassion. I love it. I love these people. They're fascinating to me. Let's see what Google tells me about them. And let's go back in time. No, that's why I block location. Everything here. Look at all this. The Tennessee Democrat, everyone's picking it up. This is like the last 3 days. It's kind of wild how far this has gone. It's just amazing. We'll get to his Facebook page in a minute. That'll be fun to go back in time with. But let's come on. Up. All right, so we'll start with probably, let's go way back. And then let's not care about anything in the last few years. Most of the stuff is not old. Yeah, this is, I get incensed. June 9th, 2017. This is getting close to 8 years ago. First Liberty, fighting back to protect schools' religious freedom. Is this, where is he? Where is he? It should Google, this is what they do, these fuckers. Is this Avell, though? Why did it say Avell in the fucking Google search? I fucking hate the AI summaries of these things so much. Let's see. There's Chris. Log in to see the rest. I'll pass on that, and let's go to Wayback Machine. Really? Okay, well, let's see if anything shows up there. What the fuck? How is that not the website? Weird. There we go. Not on the, there we go. Not on the web. Wonderful. Let's see if it pulls anything from that URL at all. Nope, nothing. Great. I don't want to set up though. That's a dead end. This is fucking this year. I don't care. These are dead. What's the date on this one? 5 years ago. Not Chris. Google just fucking does this now. It's so annoying. And Church of God. And Union Chapel Church of God. Just go back a little bit. $12 foot? Do you think 12 foot would have it? Oh, maybe. Let's find out. search. I want to just see what is the way that this started. Boop, boop, 12 foot usually does work, but gotten out of habit. But that doesn't help. Thank you. Thank you. It was a good try, Insomnia. It was a good try. So the way that they're selling it is that he's been doing this and been because it's this is going to be interesting. Church of God is not a thing. Union Chapel Church of God. This is still in Bryan. And just a normal old church. Normal old church. Nothing super exciting there. Religious stuff. This is a church that stopped in 2018. Just nothing. There's just not a lot there. Interesting. Fascinating. Yeah, we looked under his docket, and there wasn't a ton. It's focused around this. There's a handful of like really minor sort of like it looked like traffic offenses or other things. Same with his wife. Nothing major. This is kind of his first major run-in with the police in general. And yeah, secret. It is a normal church though. So I'm not wildly zoning and fire codes. I just love, like, this is how Google's organizing these things. January 4th, 2017, on Tuesday, in 2017 apparently, a city judge found him guilty of violating fire codes. What is this title? Church used bones of 40,000 humans to create terrifying... I don't even... The internet is just becoming useless. The internet's just becoming useless. Like 2018, again, this one is because... What they do is they have like the spiders crawling and they just change the dates on things. It's just kind of wild. Oh, the left side's cut off. Very little, but yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Left side's cut off. I'll fix that. That is good to know. That is not intentional. Intentional, not intention, you stupid fucking thing. What the fuck? Why did that do that? Okay, that's fine. Come on. There we go. Super fun. So Wikipedia and Reddit are only good in what they're able to, I don't know, they're only good in what they're able to sort of have already in there. And if no one cared about this guy enough to post, you're not going to find it in either of those. But what you'll find now is edits for all of that. So going back and actually finding like what was on the internet at a certain time is incredibly difficult. Pastor charged for housing homeless. This is not 2017. I don't think any of these. This is like 2017, but this is not in 2017. See, it just goes to their fucking news thing because they just want the clicks. It's incredibly useless. Where can I look? I need ideas. I was searching in Kagi, which is my search engine, but Kagi is Kagi's a little bit more limited. So if we go like, for example, Chris Pavel, set that up. Come on. Let me go back. Search. Kagi. I don't want images. I've got images. The guy cries a lot. He cries so much. Let's see. Set up the time to be very particular. Come on, give me that calendar. We go back in time. Let's do 2010 to probably 2020. I don't really care about anything else. So there's the Brian Times piece. There's a few others. And there's Chris Avalone, which is not who we're looking up. Chris Aval. This is not from 2020. It's very, very frustrated. We did find his Facebook page, and it's let's do it again. We didn't go back super far. I don't know, just go to facebook.com. God damn it. There's Ed's House of Gems, which closed. It's a sad story. But for some reason that's in my feed, as is all of my weird conservative nightmare shit, because this is a fake account. Let's see. There's Chris Avell. And then I think it's just going to be, that's his page. I don't see any secondary stuff, so let's take a look at what we got with Chris. Go way back in time. 2016. There he is baptizing. There he is with his kids. Good for him. From 12, enjoying fire. Just shit in the past. Just shit in the past. And just old photos. Just old photos of the guy. This posts are just going to be tiring, I have a feeling. Let's just keep going. We'll see. Let's go back a bit, see what he's got. So once we get to 2021, he's just the normal God freak. If you haven't grown up in an area with these people, this is just very, very boring. The same thing always. Praise God here. There's 2021. We're just going to go way back. He has God's Not Dead, the movie, on here. The worst part is, this is what AI is being trained on. Just think about that. It's not hundreds of millions of scholars. It's join the kids. Fundraisers. Jesus is enough. We're back in 2020 now. God is better. It's not helpful. Doing kid stuff here again. There's Dad's place. Let's do that. Let's go back in time at Dad's place, maybe. Doors are always open. It's so sad. This is such a frustrating story. Yeah, this is it ostensibly could just be a church. So that's fine. So let's then go the other direction, because he's boring almost. And churches are a little different when it comes to like funding and how that works. He might just be completely boring. Oh, C-Slick. Thank you for the 5 memberships. Thank you for getting one too. Bill Sulfur, Marina Fasol, and Bubba Grimm. Yeah, there's not going to be anything interesting here. So then it's going to be First Liberty Institute. Feel free to give ideas about where to look for things, by the way. First Liberty Institute, attorney, donor lookup, results. Sounds good. We can start poking around from there. Employer, First Liberty. I just want to find First Liberty. Nope, that is a terrible typing job, Brooks. Thank you. First Liberty, Grassroots PAC. I don't think they're First Liberty Grassroots PAC. Is that? That's not what they are. First Liberty Institute. Oh, good. All right. No, I'm good. Thanks, ProPublica. So they're 501c3, so they're simply donations. That's just what they are. They're almost entirely contributions, like program services and garbage, investment income, very minor. That's interest. That's not even interesting. That was not an intended pun. And they pay out a huge amount. Kelly was paid out $550,000 for their work on it. Good for them. But then wait, what? Where did their spend go? Because their expenses were $23.9 million in 2023. Sources of revenue, $23 million. Salaries and wages, they got to about 9. I can see that from those numbers. What? Net assets, what the fuck? Am I reading this wrong? I've got to be reading this wrong. This feels very stupid. I feel like I'm having a stroke. So they have... Please someone explain how I'm not having a stroke. Their revenue in 2023 was $24.3 million. Their expenses in 2023 was just shy of 24. So that's $3.4,400,000. They have a huge amount of assets that have just been growing. That's sort of increasing year on year, which sort of works. They have just liabilities. Where was their outgoing? Where's their outgoing? Their expenses in 2023. Notable expenses only make up 44%, but that's not, it's other salaries and wages. That's not, I hate everything so much. This math does not add as I'd like it. They have to have on their site, they are 501c3, they have to have their report that goes pretty deep. I want to see 2023, what you got. Yeah, everyday heroes, blah, blah, blah. Kevin Sorbo, sorry. Projects, grand opening of a DC office. I think they're expanding. That's great. They don't. Compensation expenses does not equal $23 million. Well, it does, but you can't just say expenses broadly, and that's like the challenge of what they're doing here. So their notable expenses are executive compensation and other salaries and wages, which is about 10.5 million-ish. But they brought in 24 million, and they brought in 24.3. They spent 24 somewhere. What is it you say you do around here? So the 2023 tax returns look like this. Gross receipts pulled in 24.8. Contributions and grants, prior year, current year. Grants paid out, total assets, net assets, blah, blah. Great. Right. Total expenses. Lines 13 through 17. So they paid out $75,000 in grants. Other expenses. This is part 9, column A. Let's go to part 9. Come on. Come on. Nonprofits are the way rich and power launder influence. And money, actually. Okay, expenses. Here we go. Compensation of current officers, trustees. We saw that. Salaries and wages. Great. Pension plan accruals. These motherfuckers. Other employee benefits. $1 million. They paid out payroll taxes. Great. Legal fees for the firm, $700,000. That's interesting. Other. If line 11G exceeds 10% of line 25, which it does not, barely. That's fascinating. So they have the $2 million in discretionary funds. That's great. $1 million in advertising, $1 million in office, $1 million in IT. Yeah, that makes sense. $2 million in travel. God damn it. $2 million in conferences. Nonprofits are a thing, man. What a fucking thing. And then they have all their health insurance through it. So that makes more sense. They just don't bear it out the same way in their fucking reports. Okay. That's actually not that interesting. Seems like a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. But it's not that interesting. That's pretty normal for nonprofits. You spend the brunt of your money in advertisement, in pushing and getting the idea out there, going to conferences, holding conferences, supporting, sponsoring conferences. Nonprofits are a bitch and a half. But it's wild. It's wild. That's not interesting. So why are they taking this on? Why are they taking this on? Well, we need to go through, I think, their contribution list, which is going to be open secrets. Go back to open secrets and check it out. First Liberty Institute. My browser's just not having a good day. First Liberty Institute. I want to know who. I want to know its organizations. Nothing. Of course not. So what are they called? I may need to restart my computer at some point here soon. Weird errors. Every time the screen goes black, that's just the whole thing crashing for me. So First Liberty, what is it that they're actually called then? They're not called the First Liberty Institute. They are called the First Liberty Institute. They're called the Liberty Institute. Wait. What are they called in the report? Just show me the fucking report. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm so tired of this. Oh my god, I'm just slowly losing my mind now. They're just called First Liberty. Why can't we find them? Liberty.org is not there. Is that not their site? They don't have a redirect for www. Is that really what's happening here? It is. They're just fucking dumb. God damn it, these people. Who do I donate to then? Just First Liberty. It's not First Liberty Institute. But what the fuck? That's not their name that they're filing under. And I just had the tax thing up. And what did they call themselves? God damn it. First Liberty Institute. Doing business as First Liberty. Come on. First Liberty, Liberty First Pack, First Liberty, Jesus Christ. No, Jimbo, so it's... No, Jimbo, the church isn't none of that thing. So what we're trying to do right now, and it's not going well, is we're trying to trace back up the chain. So here's what's happening. And I'll just sort of talk out loud and we'll work through it. We have the 4 churches, and there's 4 churches that specifically these fuckers are using. And they have it in their website. Let's go show them. Maybe we can find something elsewhere. Because they have the story of these 4 churches that are specifically under fire. Let's see. Cute cases. This is Dad's. More about this case. But then they did a thing on all of them. Let's just go. We'll read more about this case as they talk about it. Backlash against Good Samaritan. What's happening is they've picked this guy and this story because it is big government crushing little government. These things. Particularly, though, what this is this is someone who's simply flaunting what are seen as bureaucratic, stupid rules. Right? The thing that's happening is that people in moneyed positions of power are utilizing First Liberty, Federal Society, and other things, as they have been, to push an agenda that is anti-regulation. The agenda that's anti-regulation in this particular case is against forcing commercial businesses, which is what Dad's Place is, despite being a nonprofit or being a church, by forcing commercial public-facing businesses to abide by fire codes so people don't burn alive inside of them. They don't like this idea. And so they've organized this and built this story very particular in that it's about them not liking the church. They don't want the church to be open. They don't like Christian faith. This guy's just a good old Christian. But none of this is true. They've bent over backwards trying to find ways to make this work for the guy. But ultimately, he's just intransigent. He's not willing to spend the money to update the place or to have doors that lock properly and unlock so people can get out in case of a fire. He doesn't care about any of these things. So for him, it's a big deal in his way, but they're using it. And that using it is the part that's fascinating to me, and that we're kind of diving into where is the moneyed interest from, because it's got to be somewhere. We can't just do it's big business. Oh, it's capitalism. Like the stupid nonsense bullshit like that. It's all this is true. There's an incentive structure in place, but there are clearly people who are benefiting from this in other ways, but we're not able to find it. The challenges right now, it seems, are that First Liberty, as they function, don't really keep track of who's contributing and how. There's some way we could start digging through that. I'm going to do it on my own. It's not going to be exciting to watch on stream. But the stakeholders in place and how they're set up is very particular. So when we go back, and this is what we can start sort of setting up. When we go back and we're looking at overall the framing that we're talking about here. If it loads. Come on. Browser's having an issue. So when we start talking about stakeholders, we need to start looking at who are financial beneficiaries of the story. This is strictly development groups. These are the people who make the most money from this up front. If you're not aware, the vast majority of infrastructure that exists in a neighborhood or in a commercial facility is actually not put there by the city. Water pipes. Let's talk about Los Angeles and what burned. Do you know who built all of that infrastructure with the piping and the hydrants and everything the way it was? It was built not by the city. It's monitored by the city, sort of, and it's taken care of by Public Water or depends, or Edison or whoever the fuck is doing it for any city. But the person who builds it, they have to build a minimum pipe size, pipe style, there's a thickness, there's a material, there's a whole bunch of rules, and those rules are what the developer uses to build. They build the minimum they have to, because every $10 is profit they're able to make. If they go, well, actually, it'd be safer as if we did this. That's not a thing a developer does, ever. That's not a thing, because they're not responsible for shit that happens down the road. As long as they stick to code, they're fine. And even if they don't stick to code, if something's not in code, they don't have to do shit. People who buy from them, because the developer ultimately sells the property, people who buy from them, those are the people who are then responsible for upkeep and maintaining. And since most of those are landlords, they're the ones responsible for that to the renters. But again, code is what keeps that minimum in place. Random, exactly. It's the developer has to build the roads and stuff, but they have to do it to spec. They do it to code. And then it becomes part of the city's system. Generally accurate. But again, it depends on what the city does and how it works. Now, in this case, we're talking about fire code. The builders are responsible for fire code. And there's two versions of this. One is the developer who actually knocks down a building or is building one up. They have to build according to the minimum required by code. They have to. The other is people who buy a new place and decide to upgrade its use. For example, Dad's Place did this, but let's give a realistic example. Let's say you buy a large series of warehouse spaces or factory spaces downtown inside of an old brick building, and you decide to turn them into lofts. This is a thing that happens fucking all the time. San Francisco's filled with them. New York's filled with them. It's a big city thing. So you turn them into lofts. You have to go apply to do this. And when you do this, they go, generally, that's fine. You can make the switch. We understand. They take a vote on it. They go about their day. But when they do that, they add in a secondary thing. That secondary thing is, here are the changes you have to make, because a factory and a series of lofts don't have the same legal requirements in the city. So if you want to switch zones, if you want to make your zone a new zone, switch over zoning, you got to apply by the new zoning. When you do that, you have to add fire repression. For example, you have to change piping in the building sometimes. Electrical in the building very often, completely redoing, because again, industrial electricity is not the same thing as residential in any way. So these things are what you have to do. Do you want to know why? It's because people die otherwise, and we don't like it when people die. Factories are operant during the day. People usually don't sleep at factories or in industrial spaces. They're not supposed to, I think would be the way to put it. And so because of that, there's not the same stringent rules about what may happen overnight. It's these things, because people live in these other places. They sleep, they dine, they cook, they set fires, they live. You have very different rules about all of it. And because of that, the zoning regulations change. And this is how things kind of go. Developers hate this because if they're buying or if they're developing a building into a new zone, whatever they're doing, they hate this shit because it's money. And money spent is money they won't get on the other side. You hear, for example, in New York, whenever someone builds one of these new stupid skyscrapers, or when they were, I guess I should say, they would be screaming and yelling about how long it takes because of all the zoning regulations, all the things like the amount of water that people should have in their homes, or that they should have a fire exit, or that they should be able to leave safely, like shit like that. It just, oh, wow, we require that. And it's not a lot, very much. Developers very much control this shit. But it's enough, and we have to have it set up. So there's this game that plays in a lot of these spaces where developers who have already had to do it have sort of the crab bucket mentality. They don't want new people who are getting into it to have it too easy because they've already spent the money. So there's kind of this tension of, we don't want to reduce it too much because I don't want to get fucked because I had to spend all of it, or that they get grandfathered in. Like, they're constantly battling that way. But to bring it back, the challenge here is that the regulatory relationships that exist between, and this is particular in this case, between developers of, I would say commercial, it's going to be commercial developers, spaces, and the way that they're ultimately tied into the way that they are restrained by the city ordinances and zoning. That relationship is incredibly important here. Junes asks, is there public business before the state's development building committees or approval boards that might shed some light on the local state of play for developers? Probably. This is actually probably a worthwhile thing for us to go through. So let's do, because the challenge is it doesn't have to be Ohio. So it's one of the things we run into as the sort of other thing here, because we are not talking really locally about any of this being held up at the state level. Most states would absolutely not overturn something like this. Most states would maybe overturn abortion, but even then, like, these are things that like run on a very unique sort of case-by-case basis. We now have a federal society at the top. We have a federal, the people who have always been bitching about states' rights and how important the state is and the local level and all of that. These assholes are now in charge, and they don't give a fuck about states' rights. They're now doing everything they can to have a minority overrule everyone else flatly. And that's, again, great irony of our time. So it doesn't have to be that. It could be New York guys, New York developers and California developers who are furious, are using this as an example and are paying them to bring anything to bear. The prayer thing, Washington is not the home of like the world's evangelical movement, right? It's Texas, it's elsewhere. But Washington is where they found the best case that they could put in front of the Supreme Court for the very particular ruling. So the particularities of the ruling is really what we need to be looking at and where people are having issues there. And the particularities are the changing from one zone to another, the way that this is grandfathered in, the way that you have to sort of work with the zoning regulations as they are. So it's going to be a challenge. Oh, you've got a zoning map in Discord. Perfect. And that is not jumping anything. That's just fantastic. Excellent. My wife got pizza. Happy day. Let's do it. Let's take a look. Okay. This is actually not that complicated of a map in reality. That's interesting. Okay. All right, so let's marry this to the map we were going through earlier. Reload. Oh, all my pages went to sleep because I did too. That makes sense. I got tired looking at all this shit yesterday. Okay, so it is, we are talking about, this is the main road in the middle. This is straight up right in the, fascinating. Okay. Wait. How you read zoning maps. This is important for everybody because you should all go look at your zoning map of your town, your city, wherever you fucking live. Everywhere has one. If you have a city, you have this. It is organized very much like this, where they literally color code everything, and every zone is its own sort of thing. Single family residential is what it sounds like. It's every building. This is a building level. It's building level. Single family residential requires single family use. Apartments are out. Having a person renting your back room is like this single family use. Traditional residential, it varies. They've defined that. Multifamily is apartment blocks. Multi-use is like live work. There's a lot of sort of shifting there. It just means that it's generally at the edges towards industrial zones, and they kind of allow things to do whatever. Light industrial, heavy, and then neighborhood commercial, small shops, general commercial, bigger shops, central business, office complexes, and then they've got a core area here in the middle. And that core area is actually really, because that's like literally next door. That's where this is. Where did I go? What the fuck, Brooks? Did I go that far? Jesus Christ, Brooks, what did you do? Dad's Place Church, South Main Street. Alright, zoom back out. Thank you, Google. Stop being crap to me today. Yeah, this is literally in their core area. Now this is interesting. This is actually fascinating. This is actually an interesting setup. So they have a core area. I'm actually going to be really curious to look up what they do with that and what they mean by it. But it includes Dad's Place, by the way. In the core area, god damn, fuck, this annoys me. Dad's Place is right here. This is the city center. Dad's Place is just below it. Just below the courthouse. All right, let's go look up what these things are. Ryan, Ohio zoning regulations. Oh, you're brilliant, Insomnia. Thank you. That'll save me a search. All right. City of Bryan. Geographic system zoning, chart zoning. Come on, just go to it. Okay. What do they define these as? This is conditional, similar, site plan approval, subdivision, plat approval, blah, blah, blah. They don't have core anywhere in here. The fuck is a core area? What the fuck does that even mean? So in certificate application, moving buildings, solicitor permit, types of permits. They've done this. They've gone through this. Signing permits, community reinvestment area. So where is the... in the industrial, commercial, multi-use district, along with any residential zone district that is adjacent to main... Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. So, the city of Bryan has a community reinvestment area that is a tax exemption if you are building downtown in that core business area that they call about. And you get a lot of very particular rules about what you can do there, but it's a tax exemption in what you build, which is fascinating. The tax abatement is for real property. The length of the abatement is 5, 7, or 10 years, depending on the investment. It is right where this happened. It's actually, this directly implies and impacts the community reinvestment area, because it's anything adjacent to Main Street and High Street. And lo and behold, look at who's adjacent to Main Street. So now I have an inkling. Let's see. So we know that our friend had his shit violated really bad. He got violated pretty bad. Yeah, there's a bunch of zoning legs. I see it. But this is, I actually don't know how I'm going to search for what I'm thinking of. But, so here's what happens when you do what they're doing. You tell everyone who's in business, hey, by the way, we're going to do a complete tax abatement. We want to reinvest all of this. We want to reinvest in our downtown area. We want Main Street to become a thing that people will visit and walk down. You're a city. This is what you do. This is not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. Taxes are a bitch. Taxes are a bitch for small businesses, tiny businesses. Let's say I want to open a donut shop. Fucking donut shop. My margins are already tiny. So if I have a tax abatement for 10 years, it actually gives me room to find myself to become successful. But by having that downtown, you've made the space more walkable, more interesting, more gooder for people to go down, right? But those buildings are already there. For me, donut shop guy, to buy a spot or to have a landlord redo a spot for me, if let's say I want to have a bar, zoning change. It's a zoning change. Because if it wasn't a bar already, questions have to be asked, permits have to be given. You have to ask for these things, especially if you're going to ask for a change like he did, which is a switch from what it was, which is just core business, to being explicitly, what was the thing he applied for and got? Because he actually got it. He got the, specifically it had to do with overnight sleeping, some semblance of like what a hotel has. There was something they granted. But you always have to ask for these. You can't just go somewhere and open a business. Like, it has to be kind of the same business, or you tend to have to ask for a new permit, new business permit, whatever it is. And with that, the building has to be changed. You have to update your everything if you're the landlord. It's always the landlord, generally. People have to put in their own stuff. If I'm a donut shop guy, I have to put in things. But if there's no sockets, for example, for my industrial mixer, then I'm not moving in. And I can't put in a socket. Like, I'm not the person who does that. It's not my building. I can't be doing things that are in violation or around code. That's the job of the property owner, generally speaking. So the property owner has to do that, but they have to abide by code. If you were to get rid of that. That's Bryan, Texas. Are we looking in Bryan, Texas? God damn it. No. This is Ohio. I think. Fuck. Was I looking at Bryan, Texas? Oh, the municipal court website. God damn it, it is. Of course it is. Good Life Texas style. What are you talking about? I was never on that site. I think this is the right one. We were on it yesterday. Yeah, this is Bryan, Ohio. Thank you. Thank you, Olivia. No, I'm not saying you insomnia. I'm a dumbass. I'm a dumbass. Dumbassery has been had. It happens. Don't worry about it. So then the question would be, how would I even start searching for that? We'd have to start with... I'm actually not sure. So let's think about it for a second. We're looking to find out specifically who has applied for changes in zoning of substantial nature in the downtown area of Bryan, Ohio. Because downtown Bryan, Ohio is doing the thing a lot of places are doing, which is if you do redevelopment at all and you rebuild, you can get a code change, zoning change, all that stuff, but you have to bring things up to code. It's part of the deal. And that's how you get your tax breaks. People want to ostensibly just get the upgrade, but then not make the improvements. My bet would be that there are one or two developers who are in hot shit in some way in Bryan, Texas. That'd be my bet. I'm actually debating on calling the clerk of court. Yeah, I'm actually at that point. My aunt was clerk of court in Inglewood, Colorado. She was elected to space. She did that for most of her life, actually. She was reelected every couple of years. And that was kind of what they did. They find stuff and it's like, hey, I'm looking things up. I may actually have to make that call. And I actually think that's a thing you can do, which is interesting. I'm actually really fascinated because there's all the civil forms, there's fees, there's all this stuff for these people. Garnishment, I don't have interesting there. Yeah, I'm going to actually have to contact them. Does anyone live in Ohio? Does anyone here live in Ohio? Ideally, just slightly outside of Toledo? What the fuck? Oh. My neighbor's window is at the perfect angle. That's my favorite thing. God damn it. God, fuck. So, that's really bright. That is really bright. Oh, Sure Shot does. Interesting. Power Star says, I think that's always the case. When I briefly worked in solar, the company was in trouble in a few cities where inspections required greater scrutiny because of failure rate. I just have this theory generally. Whenever I've looked into one of these things in the past, I used to do this a lot when I was in Denver because I used to have fun looking at these things. I don't know why. But I've been doing it since we moved here. I did it when I was in LA because LA is insane when it comes to this. But you can always find like, oh, look, they're doing this big push. There's literally a dude. It's usually a dude, like a developer who's like really upset about this or that, who's like leading the charge, but he's doing it from behind. They know that everyone hates a fucking developer who's building these high luxury apartments. No one, even rich people don't like these developers because they're fucking them in the other way. So the question is like, how do we actually find ourselves? Who's doing this and how it's doing this, and see what we can play with there. City Council is the authority to approve or deny commercial industrial permits, rezoning requests. There's got to be a public rezoning because the city engineer doesn't actually handle rezoning requirements. That's usually City Council, and it is here. So we take a look at submit your event, Williams County, community resources, city departments, income tax. Come on, stop it, you fucking mouse. Municipal court, blah, 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 parks and rec, street department, utility, wastewater, city clerk and city clerk treasurer. I'll take a look at that. Is there a city council website that shows what has been on the docket and anything like that? Usually when they apply for like a change, it's not one. They do a bunch at once. I did a video on zoning regs, and it's with the town sort of around me. It's a Camas, and the guy who owned all of this area because he owned a logging company that logged all of this area. Over time, he just sold parts off. He had employees who lived nearby and slowly just sort of sold all of these different parts. And one of them he kept as a golf course, opened up his own personal golf course, made it public, and it's a very lovely course. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to like be a dick to the guy. He's perfectly fine, but it's an interesting and particular thing that happens there, where he then sells it to a development group, and this is not. Am I still streaming? I'm still streaming. Yeah, they have public. Ooh, they have public meeting recordings on YouTube. This could be really the driest stream that anyone's ever done. Everyone, let's do it, Olivia. I love it. This is a very funny sketch that, because it doesn't record, because I have a pie hole, it blocks all the trackers. It doesn't know that I've watched it like 100 times, but I do really like this sketch, and so I've watched it over and over and over and over. Because it's always recommending it to me because it knows it's what I'd like. City Council Planning Commission. Let's do it. All right, so this story broke November, so we can presume that this was happening before that. It wasn't even news nationally. It wasn't even a thing until October-ish. So we are talking about 5 months, 6 months. Is the time frame ish. What? Wait, just okay. I am having issues on my end. That's good. That's good to know at least. Why is that not playing audio? It's not playing audio anywhere. I don't even think you guys are getting audio from this one. And it just disappeared when I did that. That's my favorite thing. It's also not playing audio anyway. This could be quite frustrating. Still doing playback out the right bits. Okay. Interesting. This is not good. Because it's just nothing's doing this right now. Okay, it thinks it's playing. I'm going to kill VLC. Can you guys hear anything except me? Seems broken. I'm going to have to relaunch Windows. Wonderful. That's okay. I'm going to... I turned the music off just to see if it was a conflict. It is not. So we will one tab this up and lock it down. And close. And then we will maybe reopen. And we will start again. On YouTube, can I hear it? When I play it, we will find out. No, still nothing, and it is not outputting any noise whatsoever. That is just beautiful. Oh, God, finally. Good. I can even hear the music now. For some reason, that wasn't playing through my own speakers. Leftist audio. Deal with. It happens. But we're going to go ahead and get this open because now we know, I think I know what's going on, and we should be mostly okay. And we're going to pop this over, head back to our friends at YouTube, and we're going to go for Brian Council. These are very dry. Brian.
Evening, welcome to.
I can hear it. And then, for some reason, it's not wanting to display now because I'm assuming the same problem. So I'm just going to go and delete that. We'll just create a new whole thing here. It'll be easy. Window capture. It'll be Webby. And it's going to be YouTube. Come on. Nope. Easy and audio. Done. Say, look, you guys can see all of this fun stuff. And I know it's been the most exciting stream you've ever been part of. So I appreciate you sticking with me as we figure this shit out and try to get there. Because this is a pain in the ass. All right. So, working with all of this, we'll just make our way through and just keep talking. It's easy. This is from 3 days ago. I don't have interest in this one, so we'll just go back a little bit further. We're going to just go back and look at 5 months ago. They have a lot. 5 months ago here, Board of Public Affairs, Municipal Utilities, pass. Council meeting, find out.
Good evening, welcome to Monday, August 19th City Council meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
My contact information. So, again, thank you very much.
Oh, good. They actually have summaries. Ordinance to amend Title 15 of the Bryan Codified Ordinances by enacting Chapter 1503 entitled Fireworks. That's probably not related. Ordinance providing annual appropriations, fiscal year, mayor to enter in contract with SNS. Resolution to set employee annual premium rate for health insurance for the period. Now, if we pull open and we talk about the timeline of when these guys because we have First Liberty, right? We have their YouTube. We go back to when they actually first started posting about this dude. We know when they became interested. We just have to go back and figure out how many months ago it was that they got their big push. And then we link it. Again, this is like my favorite part. It's right here. 11 months ago.
Follow the bargain.
Well, we're still the church operating 24/7. And honestly, Trace, I'm grateful that the city, they've come in, they've made Dad's Place even more safe and even more wonderful. And we're just going to keep doing what we do. That's stay open 24/7, share the gospel with everyone. And everyone's always welcome at Dad's Place. So we're just excited.
When you say it's open 24/7, Pastor, does that mean the homeless are allowed, that you let them back in at night in some of these cold nights in Bryan, Ohio?
Everyone's allowed. Yeah. I mean, we're a church 24.
The propaganda is just dripping. When you say 24/7, does that mean you allow them to come in at night?
24/7. So certainly we don't say if you're homeless, you're not welcome. Absolutely. Everyone is allowed, from the richest of the rich to the poorest of the poor, to people who have houses in Malibu, to people who don't have any place.
That is perhaps abusive, or just need to get out of the cold because you're walking too long outside at night in the middle of the winter in Ohio, you're welcome at Dad's Place 24 hours a day. This is a church that is doing church things and has always been doing church things. And the fact that the city ever came after him to prosecute him for criminal activity for violating, they think, the ordinances of the town is just ludicrous. I'm glad that the town has now dismissed those criminal charges, and we can now sit down with the city and reason together about how Dad's Place contributes to the future of Bryan, Ohio. something that the church is eager to do and get on with the good ministry that they're doing there in the city.
And
Yeah, no mention of the shelter, not across the street. If we want to just remember Dad's place and its location. Dad's place, Bryan, Ohio. Here's Dad's place. The entrance is on the back side. It's actually a rear entrance to the building. There's a restaurant on the front. They are the sort of larger warehouse space in the back. But this Dad's place's entrance is right here. And this is the sanctuary, which is like it's this entire building. It's a huge building that houses many families. We went through their website. They're actually doing some really good work. So they're doing a lot, and they're not closed 24 hours a day. They just have rules about active drug use and drinking and coming onto the property drunk because they have families. If you haven't worked with the unhoused, this is one of the real difficulties, is making tough calls like that. Because if you do not have the people and staff on hand in order to handle those who are dealing with substance abuse, you can't it can't be a free-for-all. It sucks. I mean, I would love to know how others have done it. If you know of a successful place that has found a way to handle that easily without a lot of effort and without having medical staff on site, honestly, and kept it safe, please let me know. I am unaware. I'm unaware of it. It's not a thing I've seen. It's really depressing, but it's accurate. So they're right there.
I wonder, Pastor, when you finally get these permits, and we know it's bureaucracy, so it might take a while. When you finally get these permits, how will this change the operation of the church? What will you be able to do differently in reference to everybody, including the homeless?
Well, I think it will open up. There's a lot of work to do. We're the church. And so I think it opens up even more opportunities to reach more people and to help more people and to show Christ's love to more people. That's what we're all about. This is about Jesus, and we're about showing his love to people. And so it'd just be amazing as we get permits and other things that would actually allow us to expand our ministry reach. So we're very excited about this.
They got the permits, and then they refused to make any of the changes. That's the story. That's literally the entire story. So this started 11 months ago. We're just going to check every one of these fucking videos, I guess, because that's just the fucking day I'm having. That's just the day I'm having. We'll just check every fucking one of these. Every single one. Board of Public Affairs, we can skip that. There's 8 months, 10 months. Let's find out what they did right after this guy had this fucking come to Jesus moment, as they say. I just know I don't want to listen to every one of these. I'm going to hear that beginning every time, aren't I? Approval, hearing public concerns, 5 minutes. It's going to be every one of these. Approval to hear minutes, public concerns, mayor to enter master service agreement order with cloud-based human resources software. Yeah. You want bureaucracy. They had to have a meeting here in order to allow the mayor to utilize cloud software. And then they had to have a vote on it and hearings. And oh, God, city planning is just wonderful. It is not SimCity. Approval of minutes, parking lot variances, and adjournment. It is a hour and a half of that. I'm not sure. What the fuck? Sorry for the suggestion. Yeah, I appreciate the suggestion. It's the kind of thing where I'm actually going to grab them, and I'm going to... You want what AI is good for? Yes. I'm going to grab all their fucking transcripts, run it through an AI, and see if that can tell me that there's anything. That's going to be what I'm going to do, because this is just going to be too fucking much. This is just way too much. I'll write a script, it'll pull transcripts, analyze them, find any mention of Dad's place and other stuff. That should be fine. That's an easy script I can actually probably run pretty quickly. We are not doing a city planning stream. We're just not. And my eyes are going slowly blind. we're going to switch gears. We're going to switch gears because I have to do that in order to get to the next bit of what we really need to be doing inside of our Miro board. Like I'm just going to have to. So we can start organizing stakeholders, but knowing literally the financial benefits is going to be difficult as we do that. We start dividing up. Developers of commercial spaces are the people who benefit the most financially. They are absolutely ones who benefit the most. And their barrier is the city ordinances and zoning. Because it's keeping them, it's basically the blocker, as we saw, between them and development in one of the it's a development area, special development zone. Zero tax, there's a whole bunch of other benefits. Federal program, Trump did, Biden also followed up on. There's a whole lot of issues with them, a whole lot of issues. But they tend to be helping in areas, so it's hard for me to even bitch overall about it. Yeah, the website's really slow, so I'm just going to skip past that. We're just going to start jotting out what we can do. So city ordinances and zoning is stopping them from getting to tax breaks, as well as I would assume we're talking about access to grants and bonds too, because that tends to come with special development zones. And that's the sort of blocker we're talking about here, right? I think that's probably the safe way to put it. So this is blocked there, and this is blocked there. Nice and easy. So then let's talk about who else we've got sort of set up here. We've got, and because this is federally, but those are the big ones. But we also have general stakeholders in terms of the. No, let's not do general stakeholders. What is the phrasing it's got? Hey, flat scores. I left you an essay. Sorry about that. I know you probably did too. We'll go back and forth. At some point, I probably will do a video addressing it. Actually, I'm going to diverge. Since I said we might do theory, I'm probably going to do that, and then I'm going to go eat pizza and take a break, and I'll probably be streaming later tonight. I've got a few phone calls I need to make in order for us to do this, and I need to write some stuff out. This ended up being kind of a mess stream, I know, isn't it? Aren't you just disappointed in Brooks? You should be. It's terrible here. It's terrible here. I'll come up in a minute. So here's what the last thing I'll say about this. This is not an easy thing to do. The way we're structuring everything here, the way that this is set up, the way we've talked about this is not a thing for a single person. This is best done with groups putting in any semblance of effort that they can. It helps a great deal to go through and have things set up like this and then have a handful of people reorganize and place this so we can get to that last point. Because what we need to get to, and ideally quickly, and I know I did nothing today to help with this, which is fine. I'm okay with it. I'll survive. Maybe. I'm probably more frustrated with myself than anything, but that happens. That's not exciting. The thing we need more than anything is to get as many ideas as possible from as variant directions as possible. One of the challenges that they have, and when I say they, I mean conservatives, is that they are a monoculture. They are not that interesting and they are not that diverse. Ultimately, they have the same stories. This one is an archetypical big guy versus little guy, government versus religion, government hate, war on Christmas, tiny businessmen. This is that archetype over and over and over that they're playing with. That's why we had that all in the dominant framing. And it became really clear this is the same type of story that they always play. Generally, we're going to have the same stakeholders. It's not going to be that interesting. It's the capital class. We need to get particular with it so we know what they are. But we also need to be talking about in here, for example, in the stakeholder setups, who is shaping the mainstream coverage. And we kind of know a few of these. We can actually jot out a handful of these things. So let's talk about the mainstream coverage, for example. Who's shaping it? Well, it's actually these conservative groups, the Federalist Society and First Liberty, these guys are the ones shaping. They shape. That's what they're doing. Okay. And this is Lakoff's framing. It's exactly that. Who's shaping it? Whose voices get amplified? There's two voices that are amplified here. One is, and this is why it works, is voice one is the nice, dumb preacher. He doesn't have a lot interesting to say. He's filled with Christ's love, and he just wants to take care of people. He's the nice, dumb preacher. The second voice is what I would call the implied, because it's actually not a person's voice, but it is the desperate's voice. The unhoused, the homeless. Their voice is in this. Their voice is in this. That's who's built into the story. So when we talk about, specifically, what voices are amplified, they're not amplifying no voices. They're amplifying the preacher and you've heard him. He's like, I just want to be, oh, shucks, Wally. I just want to be doing my churching. That's his voice. And it's a very, very good one to have. Honestly, it's a very good one. But the second is through him and through these other propaganda videos and through that Fox News host. They're giving voice to the unheard. It's one of those things that, again, conservatives are exceptionally good at, the idea of the silent majority, right? There's so many people that you're just not hearing. Well, for them in this case, it's the desperates. So this is the second voice that's being amplified. They're not amplifying any other voices. Not really. They're not talking about developers and the constraints on capital. They're not talking about anything. They're saying the Constitution. They're talking about these things. So with that, we need to talk about then what experts are cited. None. They're not doing that here. He is the guy. He is the thing. And this is what's set up. Now, when we talk about this, though, this is what's amplified. What is marginalized, what's minimized, these are the important ones, is the people actually doing the work. They're the ones being pushed down. No one has talked once about the actual multifamily homeless shelter that is literally next door. That the reason that he has people who are refused by a homeless shelter is that there's a homeless shelter next door. And the people who are refused, they're extremely marginalized. But again, that's the way it works in our world. We should have medical and mental care for everybody. When it's left to people, when it's left to the private sector, as they say, to the religious groups, to anything else, you cannot have crack addicts, heroin addicts, drug addicts, and drunks in a space with unhoused children and women. That's it. You just can't. If you're 2 people, 3 people running that whole thing, it's you and your wife, which it is. Pastor Chris, he doesn't actually support or care for these people. You understand that. He cares in the sense of like a Christian required to care, but he's not counseling them towards health. He's not working with them. They're not staying there overnight. He's not making sure that they have good food in them. They don't have a kitchen. They don't have anywhere to sleep. I think he has bedrolls that he rolls out, which again, not really super good to have as a thing, right? Just not a thing. So when we talk about all of this, these are the people who are being pushed down. But also, there's a second set, and it's bureaucrats. I will never spell this word fucking right. I will never spell this word right, and I don't know why. In my brain, since I was young, I know how to spell bureau, B-U-R-E-A-U. Done. But I can't spell bureaucrat, and I don't know why. But it doesn't matter. Government drones. which is what they're called by these people. The government drones are being suppressed. And that sounds like, who the fuck cares about these people? Well, actually, here's the thing. Until we have that revolution, these government drones are the ones making sure that, we don't burn to death. We don't die. That is keeping the stuff on the basic lines in the most boring way possible. And they're doing it through regulations and meetings and councils. Now, most of them, sure, corrupt and fucked up and have a million incentives. And yes, America's broken, blah, blah, blah. Don't care. The government drones are being minimized because they're saying the thing that's the boring answer that does work, which is, so what do you want us to do? Like, we've got to do something. Like, we can't have no zoning rules. We've had that. It didn't work out. So that is the thing. No, I know how to spell bureau. That's the thing. I was second in my state in the spelling bee. I can spell, except for some reason when I add crat, my brain wants to put the U, the bureau, in the first part. I don't know. I have some undiagnosed shit there. But by minimizing that and minimizing them, they're doing an incredible disservice to people because, as I talked about in my zoning regulations video, the first thing that people in power want you to do is to believe you don't have recourse. That the material conditions that produce you are just the will of the market and that there's no way you can shift the will of the market, which isn't true. You can go and actually fuck with your city council. You see them, and we laugh them on YouTube all the time, and there are some that are hilarious. There's some that are hilarious. I included my favorite one, which is the guy who showed up dressed as a clown. I love that. It will make me smile forever. But like, this is what they want. They want you to not know that there are people actively doing the work. That's how they talk about it. And that really these bureaucrats have no good in them. And so we have, in our setup, we have this thing that's happening. These voices up here are getting elevated and these are getting marginalized. That's the setup. Let's continue. We start talking about which experts. We don't have that here. Perspectives are marginalized. We've done that. So who bears the costs and the risk? This is the fun one, because does the dumb preacher bear costs and risk? Yeah, actually he really does. If he does stupid stuff that people die in, he's literally liable for it. Even if whatever he's doing, if any of this happens, and he shouldn't be being encouraged to do this. He shouldn't be being encouraged to not follow fire code for a building where he's keeping the desperately poor and the mentally unwell. You should have fire code obeyed there. So he's definitely being put in that position. The desperate, absolutely bearing the brunt of this outcome. They're bearing the brunt of the cost, the outcome cost, what the plan is for the thing. But, and this is what's fascinating. The government drones aren't going to see any of it. The people actually doing the work aren't bearing any. This is really affecting these two groups. That's who's bearing the brunt as far as I see it. They want you to think you have recourse to the rule of property rights. Oh, fair. Okay, I'm gonna adjust. Secret Agent Dan, that's a fair point. It's a fair point. And I think I do say this in the video actually, but yes, they don't want you to think you're powerless. They want you to understand you're powerless because of their property is property, that it's not yours, that you can't affect property that's not yours. If eventually you can have your own land, but don't touch mine mentality. That thing they want you to believe in. It's just fucking silly. The people who receive the benefits, and we kind of went over this, but the brunt is mostly here of the cost, but the benefit is going to be these guys. And forgive my handwriting, I don't care. The benefit is the developers of the commercial spaces, because they get to not spend the money, not worry about things, and continue to move forward and develop and sell that property into new hands. Continue to upsell, develop. Commercial property right now, if you're unfamiliar with how the commercial property market is going, let's talk about San Francisco commercial vacancies. Commercial's not doing great. I think would be the way to put it. San Francisco office overall vacancy rate at the end of the fourth quarter of 2024 was at 34.2%, dropping 20 basis points from the previous quarter of 240, increase from the rate of 31.8% 1 year ago. There are more vacancies than last year, and that's very bad because it's not been good. It hasn't been good. There's, for those of you who haven't been, there's an extraordinary number of buildings in San Francisco that are really genuinely beautiful. And I mean that, like I lived there for a long time. I got used to the skyline, but, well, the old skyline, I should say. I probably should be more particular. But once you hit this little area right here, this spot right here, this is the financial district of San Francisco. If you're a tourist, generally speaking, you kind of come down here. This is like the museums. This is where GDC and conventions are held. Market Street's like been famous for being literally markets. It is a shithole nightmare now. It wasn't exactly great before. Down here's the Castro, and then you have like a whole bunch of cute little areas. But right here, this area right here is the big stuff. These are the financial buildings that really make up the brunt of San Francisco's sort of bottom line as a thing. And there is one particular building that you can see, if it lets me. It is not letting me. Why did I click that? That's not what I was hoping for. Switch to 3D. Can you switch to 3D? Can you not do that? You don't want to do that. Okay, fine. Don't care. The Transamerica building, which is genuinely one of the more extraordinary buildings in the entire city. It's this huge fucking nightmare pyramid. There, you can see it here. It is really striking. It's a really striking building. Like, it's really striking. And it used to be basically filled with Salesforce. Like, I think the whole fucking building. I want to say, I think the whole fucking building. It's like an extraordinary amount of people in one company. And then a couple of years ago, thanks to COVID, we all got to learn that you didn't have to have people in buildings anymore. And that was the most expensive, I think, per square foot commercial space in San Francisco was the Transamerica building. And then they went, yeah, everyone can work from home. Fuck it. And they basically gave a big middle finger to the landlord saying, we're not paying. We're done. Like, we don't give a shit. Get fucked. And when you're Salesforce, you get to do that. And so now you have this insane 1/3 of all office spaces in San Francisco is empty. And it used to be impossible to get new office space. It used to be so full. My first job in San Francisco was above a Walgreens in a really badly rebuilt little like 3 office little space with a couple of the guys who founded oneup.com. We were a video game website doing video game reviews for parents. And I was the coding intern, production intern. It was my first job. But it was not intended to be an office space. And it was anywhere you could. When that place ended up folding, and John Davidson was a wonderful guy. He did a couple other things, but he moved and he ended up, because he couldn't find office space for his next venture, he was working out of Sega's offices. Sega gave him a back room because you just couldn't find office space. And now 1/3 of the fucking place is fucking empty. And no one wants to move in anywhere. And it's not because of crime. It's not of this shit. That's not the reason. It's because if you don't have to spend the money, why would you? It's an extraordinary amount of profit was just disappearing into someone else's pocket, it turned out, the commercial real estate sector. So commercial real estate across the board is just hilarious at this point. Yeah, I know. There's just, fuck, come on. Give me the fucking thing. You've got to be giving me something. I hate when they do this. Just give me, we'll just read the summary. It's fine. Commercial real estate investment volume stabilized at Q3, $90 billion, which is down only 2% year over year versus a 49% decline in the same quarter the year before. That's an insane drop. That's not like $10. Like, it's stabilized at 90 billion after a 50% decline in one quarter. It's insane. The commercial is fucked. And so the people who are still in it, and they're all still in it. And it's one of those things that's like, I held up with toothpicks is all I can think. By the way, also used car market. Enjoy that story. Like, we're nearing a very big problem across the board as all of these things sort of start coming together. And no, Trump's not going to fix it. But commercial guys are really trying their best. They're really doing everything they can to sort of get ahead of the game, you might say, and do what they can to get ahead of the game. And this would be a way, for sure. They would get an extraordinary amount of benefits. Not having to upgrade zoning regs when you change to a new zoning proposition or a new use, that's a huge deal. And then also in a lot of these specialty zones, being able to fight for that, that's fucking crazy. Zero taxes. This comes with government often, with government grant support as well as bonds sometimes. So there's a lot of investment and hope trying to revitalize downtown areas because no one goes out anymore and cities are suffering. There's a whole bunch of problems. Who funds the research? I really am going to dive into that one. Where accountability lives is going to be really tough. That's actually a really interesting question. For this story, who is accountable? I'm hesitant to say anyone. Who's accountable for this? Well, as they tell the story, the accountability is with the city council. That's who they keep blaming things on. That's how they phrased it. Right? That's how they've talked about it. This is the accounting, the accountability is sitting with. But that feels deeply unsatisfying. So accountable to whom? When we ask about accountability, the way that Lakoff talks about it and the way I kind of liked, that's why I included it, is it's not accountability to anyone. You want to kind of say to whom, but it's much more of the emotional thrust of it. So if we were talking about going to Mars, for example, there is no accountability. The accountability seemingly is actually vested in Musk himself and Trump and the people at NASA, maybe. It's seemingly so. But accountability is a really interesting thing because since there is no effort and there is no way we are ever going to Mars, enjoy that fact. It's just enjoy. There's no accountability. Oh, we're not going to Mars? That means someone's in trouble. Doesn't exist. So for this, the accountability on the side of the religious people who are seeing it, who do they see as accountable? It's the bureaucrats. They blame the government, the state, the mayor particularly is used in a lot of these. The USA Today article goes after her and a few council members. They're seen as the ones that are accountable. To everyone, it would seem to be the accountability is in the current setup seen as the city council, and they probably are accountable. I can't think of anyone else who you'd consider as such. So the city council, they actually are the ones who sort of have the accountability across the board. The buck stops with them, and this would include the mayor too. Right? And I'll prettify this and do this a little bit later, but that's kind of how I'm reading the situation. Feel free to disagree and state otherwise. Or literally just, by the way, you can just jump into the board. It's waiting for you. It's open. Discord.com/DGQC if you would like to check it out at any point. You're welcome to. So it's like boy who cries wolf accountability, where it only matters enough mass people stay invested enough in the Mars story that the people in the mayor, keep treating it as possible. Something like that. It's accountability is something that squishes between people, and it's really important to find the locus of who people understand as accountable. So when the story is going out and it's these people are destroying this church, the accountability is placed on them. But this is the switch. and it's the important switch, is the reality is the accountability is with the city council in terms of the story. But I would say that you could easily flip that and that it's on Chris, the preacher. This is where I would say accountability is, Brooks says. Because for me, he's the one who said, like, if he never said he wanted to do this, there'd be no problem. But he affirmatively went and made the effort and said, I want to do this. And they said, if you do that, you have to make these changes. And he said, okay. To me, he gave his fucking word. And he's a fucking coward. That's how I would phrase this. Because he's a huge asshole for giving his word and bearing false witness. Just my thoughts. Accountability is a fraught term. But again, we're not trying to find out what is the best way for the world to exist. Right now, we're trying to figure out what's the best way for us to adjust this headline and produce a series of videos with a very particular tonality and intention that can possibly deride the story and push back, maybe create enough confusion to even negate it, if possible. And I don't think it's hard because most of this stuff is just very fuzzy shit. All this stuff is. Because if we were actually trying to solve this, we would have a GoFundMe to put together a fire sprinkler for Chris. Oh, that's a good idea, actually. That's actually a good idea. Because then he just makes the adjustments. Who gives a shit? It's actually a really interesting idea. There's a GoFundMe for Chris. I believe it's for lawyers' fees. Let's actually find out. Share any you've got, by the way. Yes, that's a fundraiser. It's literally not to build. Like, that's the thing, is like, these are just donations to him, but this isn't even to him. This is just some other person who's claiming they're going to, fine, they'll deliver it.
A pastor in the city of Bryan was arraigned this morning for housing the homeless in his church. Pastor Chris Avell, he pleaded not guilty on 8.
This is from a year ago. What? Man. GoFundMe should maybe be, like, really looked at. Maybe should be really, really looked at. There's a larger one? All right. Let's check out what we got in here. It's the Nancy Michael, a different one. Let's check out what Nancy's up to. That's 40,000. That's more than enough to do it. Raising money to benefit Dad's church. Any donation. This is just money going to them. This is not for a purpose. This is not to build it. This doesn't solve the problem. That's kind of, I think, this is what's interesting here is, again, accountability, right? Accountability, setups, who's paying for what and how it's going. This thing that's happening, they're putting, and this is from a year ago again. This is not a new one. None of these are new. They raised $40,000 here though, which is crazy shit. The vast majority of it is a long way back, though. Like a year or more. Yeah, it'd be a year or more. Why would it be a more? How's this? It's a lot of, that's 600 donations is crazy. Yeah, this is literally just that. They donate to this church. Well, I mean, so my insomnia says, let's just say he will spend that money to make the necessary changes to build shape building code. Well, actually, that would be, I think, my point is I don't believe that's what he would do, because it's not what the fundraise is about. And literally, the fundraise could be a thing that is about saving the church by getting it built. Hey, we want to put in some shit. What do you want to put in? Oh, we're going to put in X, Y, or Z. The number of homeless people Brooks has housed, 0. Well, not in my house. No, but I've worked with multiple shelters, and specifically, actually, I've done a significant amount. But that doesn't even matter, because the number of homeless people that he's housed is almost the same number. But he's taking a lot of money for it and being used as a battering ram to destroy building codes and to make it so people don't have to obey building codes when they work on stuff. So that's great. That's great. I'm glad that you came in directly and that's the first thing that you went to. It's good stuff. Boon of Tyrants. I'm full story, but am I correct in assuming the homeless population was simply a prop for this fellow's operation? It does seem this way. We've been through every video, every photo, all the use cases. And when he says that he's open for people to stay there, what he's communicating and what people are talking about is that it's a shelter. A shelter has beds, by the way. A shelter has food. They don't have these things. They have snack foods, which is at least something, but they don't do that. What they have is a lot of tables where they preach to people who come in. The people who come in are people who are refused by the homeless shelter that is literally next door. Like they share a walking alleyway. That's how close it is. It's not like a few doors down. It's like right there. The taco place that's on the backside of Dad's place shares a storefront with this other shelter that houses many families and many people, but they don't take in people who have issues and there are problems. And we've talked about this. If you haven't worked with the unhoused, it's an issue. And it's a sad issue, but there's a reality to it. So is Chris doing something good? Sure. But again, the amount of money that's been spent on this is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, by the way. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. We looked at how much these lawyers cost that he's hired or that are being paid for by other people, miraculously. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. A fraction of this would have simply gone to putting in the fire retardant system that they have and building a door that doesn't require a padlock that burns people alive when they're stuck inside. They could make extraordinary changes. $40,000 that we're looking at right here, that's a huge amount of change. Even if you spend, again, these are not expensive systems to put in. This is not $150,000, $400,000, $1 million fucking thing. Fire retardant systems are not that much. You have to find a contractor. There's a thing you will find, especially for things like this, contractors who donate their time. And I mean this. So you're paying for parts. You might even be able to do some legwork. I have, and I know people who have, by going to the parts manufacturers and saying what it's for, and they'll donate them. Because that fucking happens a lot. No one's trying to make an extra $50 off a homeless shelter. They're happy to help. You just have to do the legwork. But that wouldn't blow apart the entirety of what building codes are for. And somehow this firm that spends $24 million a year on itself and pulls in $24.3 million miraculously happened to find this church and happened to defend him and talk about how they're willing to challenge this all the way to the Supreme Court, because that's what they've done with other people in very similar situations. They don't care about fixing the problem or finding a solution that helps with the local level because they aren't local. They are federalists. That's why they call themselves the Federalist Society. This is what they do. This is their setup. So the idea of how this works is they find people who are sympathetic to the mainstream audience, and they run with it. And they fool people. They play with it. They get you invested in it. Everyone, because everyone is invested in this. We want people to be cared for, especially unhoused. It's terrifying to be unhoused. No matter who you are, it's terrifying to be a drug addict. These things are not good. It's not like you don't hear people like on their deathbed go, I wish I spent a few more years, doing heroin, laying in the street in my own vomit. That's not how it works. This is not positive. So we all feel that. And they use that to create public pressure that is then turned against the bureaucrats, the state, and these other things, which we also hate for a good reason. But they leave out that every one of these problems is literally fixable in a very, very simple way. And across the board, city councils want to work with you on these things. They don't like having to be part of this. They don't want to be seen as this. They want to work with you. The city council that nailed this guy after over a year, first more than a year ago, granting him the zoning reg and change to allow him to become what he says he is now, with the stipulation that he make the changes to make it safe for people to sleep there. And he said, absolutely, I will, and lied. So this liar, who's now doing this, is being bolstered by these people to destroy it. This is true. That's the setup. That's the play. It's wild. It's a wild shift, and it's a really frustrating one. But I'm going to run. I'm going to go do some dinner. This was a nice solid 2.5 hours. Easy, nothing big, nothing wild. I'm probably going to stream a little bit later tonight. I'm trying to get Sunday to join. We may do a little bit of a movie review content bit, something a little bit more relaxed. I've got to build a handful of scripts, so I've got to get into visual code. And it's a thing. Scraping transcripts is a pain in the ass. But I think I've got to do it because I think there's something in there. There feels like there has to be something in there. Yeah. But anyone here, please join the Discord, discord.gg/DGQC. Jump into the work that we're doing on this. I'm going to be taking this, I'm going to make this prettier. The next step we have is we need to start looking through whether the shared experience elements, which I just started touching into, and then talk about how we work on the reframing. My money tends to be at this point that it's around the Ohio pastor who bore false witness and isn't able to simply make the small changes because he's self-aggrandizing and ultimately wants to be more important and feel more important than he is. And I think that's probably the angle that's most interesting. Because that's all we've seen of this guy. That's all we've seen. That's all we've seen. We'll make our way through it. Thank you for joining.